So let me introduce Tristan. Tristan is a very unique soul. He was raised in Fairbanks. He has been a seeker for quite a long time. He studied and lived at the Esalen Institute for a number of years and even got marooned there during the COVID period, pre-COVID. He is a static dance DJ, and today he's going to share with us about authentic language. And this is where we really bonded on. Tristan looks at the energy of the words that we use and how they affect us and how they affect the interactions that we're having with other folks. I don't know if that's a good description or not, but he'll clean up anything that I miss. So with that, how about a round of applause? Bring Tristan Cobine.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Tristan.
It's so good to see you. Yeah, that's a perfectly valid introduction for what I call authentic language. The good word we'll get to in a moment. And yeah, relationships, our self-talk, the way we speak to ourselves and to others is definitely part of that, and that's one of the, I don't want to call it superficial, but it's a more surface level benefit, side effect of this practice for me, and the roots of it go far, far, far deeper. Bobby's introduction about the metaphysical nature of the teachings here and what's transmitted here is part of the journey I hope we can go on here in the next hour, 90 minutes or so. What I've been decided to call authentic language. Never intended for it to be a practice, a teaching. It was never something I thought I would share when this began. It was an organic process for me about 10 years ago. And it just started with a word that I noticed in a very different way in my body as I was in some monologue or another alone in my house in Fairbanks. And I don't think I was even in active conversation. I was thinking something about, what I should do in the day, what I, this or that. And before I tell you the seed word, right, that kind of opened this Pandora's box for me, I would like to say that what I have discovered is that if you follow the implications of what I'm going to share with you, it can, if you let yourself follow the trail, lead. What I find is that it led me, and it leads most people who engage with it in a genuine and earnest way, to the bleeding edge of your shadow work. What you are able to tolerate and accept about reality itself. And it can frequently and very rapidly take many of us who began this process to places of intense discomfort. Possibly. I'm not saying it will happen, and it's certainly not my intent to cause anyone discomfort, but it is a side effect of becoming more authentic, encountering things that we are uncomfortable with, that we have not been willing or interested in fully recognizing, right? And that, as I have discovered for me, comes through some of the most innocuous, seemingly innocuous, most ubiquitous, ubiquitous words that we use. So ubiquitous, meaning like constant, commonplace, right? That what I've discovered is that these are such pillars of our common everyday speech and our self-talk and our talk with others, that when I introduce the idea of ceasing using those words because of the import that I see that they have been imbued with, most people, if they take that on genuinely, frequently find themselves paralyzed and they don't actually know how to speak without them. And that's really wonderful. To me, that's an indication that it's working. And so we'll get in. This will be demonstrated here very shortly. But to give that a preface, that if you're willing, that this can take, this first round of words goes to the deepest place that I know of in meaning about reality itself. And it can also be really beneficial for your relationship. So, a little preface. And I do this, it comes out a little differently each time. But I like doing this still in this very crude analog way, so I'm just going to scribble on a piece of paper as we go. Yeah, I was in Fairbanks, I was alone, and I was in monologue with myself, and some train of thought, and there was one word that just went like in my solar plexus in a way that I had not experienced before, and that was noticeable because it was a word that I recognized that I used constantly. Once I noticed it. Before I noticed it, I didn't notice it. And yeah, it just something, it was like, what is that? And I pulled that word out of my brain and I set it on the table. I was like, what does that mean? What is it? I'd asked myself what that word meant, and it was equally noticeable to me that I didn't know what it meant. And that word was should.
Yes.
I was thinking, it's like, it was probably like, oh, I'm at the computer again. I should work out. I should not watch porn. I should do the dishes. I should call my mother. I should, whatever it was, doesn't matter. Not relevant. All of the things. Whatever I should or shouldn't do. But that was the word. And I was like, why does that feel so weird to me? And I pulled it out and I put it on the table. And I was like, what does this mean? Because I recognize that it's in my common speech like all the time. If you start to hear this, what I hope for is, as you go away, what I hope for and sort of mourn for each of you is if this word and the others that we're going to discuss about begin to burn in your ears when you hear them, things will shift. And I looked at it and was like, what does this mean? We all use it all the time, right? I should go to the store. I should talk to my partner more. I shouldn't do this. I should work out. I should watch my calories. We use it all the time. What does it mean?
Nothing.
That's a genuine question. So yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, we have some hands. What association?
It implies that there's some other authority other than our own guidance that leads us.
Authority. I'm just going to write down authority for a second.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
How does it imply that?
Because, well, I'll just tell you. So when I had the exact same experience with that exact same word, and I decided that I would stop using that word. And anytime I heard it or it came out of my mouth, I would repeat what was said and I would replace the SH with the letter C.
Yeah.
And I did it for 30 days and it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard,
Yeah.
and I had to remind myself every time. And this was years ago.
Yeah.
And I'll still do it. If I'm watching a movie and I see that and that word comes up, I will literally repeat whatever the actor said and replace that word with the word could. Yeah. And I tell this to people that I coach. I say, when you use that word, it implies that there's some rule that you're following or some authority that you're following that is other than your own guidance, other than what you want to do, or that you've separated yourself from your own guidance and you are acting outside of what you know is better or what you think is better. And I just tell people, do this for 30 days and it will change your life. And everybody I've had do it, it really changes, as long as they embody what the word could means, because now you're empowered.
May I ask a question?
Oh, sir, yeah, it's not my place. I'm just talking, yeah.
If it implies an authority other than yourself, where does that authority come from?
I think we're in the habit of it from childhood. You know, when we, we have what we want to do. We want to go outside and play or do whatever, whatever we want to do. But in order to fall in line with whoever's feeding us or sheltering us or loving us, then that's what we need to do to fall in line with that. And then when we come to take care of our own selves, at least this was my experience, when we still have that dialogue running in our head about what we're supposed to be doing, and then we're continuing it on. And so anyway.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very similar to the process that I went through beginning authentic language. Not quite as extensive, but yes. I saw some other hands. What other associations? Okay. And to keep things rolling, let's try and be relatively concise. But let's start there and then one back, and then we'll go that way and that way.
I think it implies judgment.
Wonderful.
Repeat.
Judgment.
Judgment implies judgment.
Judgment. This is going to get messy, by the way. Judgment. That was my conclusion. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Thank you.
The word should reminds me of my previous therapist. She said, stop using the word should because it implies you're shitting on yourself.
Okay. Jay?
So according to Grammar Google and Oxford Dictionary, it's a verb used to indicate obligation, duty, or correctness, typically when criticizing someone's actions.
Okay, wonderful. I love that. Obligation. Where could an obligation come from? From what? To what? From what? Okay.
From our condition.
Condition.
We've been conditioned.
Okay. Sure.
In every part of our upbringing, from our parents to the culture that surrounds us, to the media that we follow, there's societal norms that we've been conditioned to follow. And they would be different shoulds in different parts of the world.
Yep. Church. Ben back.
I believe it implies free will. I should do that, but I don't have to.
That's a different take on it.
Yeah. It's an empowered take on should.
Then what does should, if you don't believe you have to, but you should,
There's lots of things I should do that I don't.
why should you do them?
Sometimes because they'll make a little bit of difference, sometimes because it'll make me feel better, sometimes because it might make the world a better place, or maybe
What is better?
it would change something in the future,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean it's necessary. And I have a choice whether I should do that or I should do this.
Interesting.
You can go in a lot of different directions with should.
Yeah.
You should have known that.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I've not encountered that hybridization yet, but that's I hear you. We'll I think we can address some of that. One sec, you were waiting.
Well, a lot of what I really say amen to what's been said, because when I was just recently talking to somebody and they said, I need to stop shitting all over myself. And to me, what I've noticed, I think it's a mind trap. I think it's a way to keep us out of our own personal power. And it is a pretty profound word because you can take it a lot of different ways. So it's fascinating to see what's come up when you add just saying the word. But I think that it is, it's really important to know who you're giving your power to and who said I should. Who said I should?
Well, I have a take on this. Ultimately, the question, I haven't had an answer for where the authority comes from, and I'll get there. I'd like to demonstrate this in a moment, but ultimately it's you. You decide. Not the parents, not the conditioning. I mean, the conditioning has encouraged you to agree to what you decide should or shouldn't be. The only way, from my perspective, ultimately any of us place ourselves in the category of should or shouldn't, whichever, is if we agree to the definitions we have been offered or encouraged to take on, But you can see that if someone offers you a condition with which you don't agree, you say, I don't agree. And you don't feel badly when someone says, shouldn't you stomp on black people? You should be doing that. They're terrible. Like, oh, well, I don't agree with that, and I don't feel guilty for not doing so. You don't agree to their condition. You don't agree to their judgment. But when someone says you shouldn't eat white flour, or you shouldn't use so much plastic, and you're like, I agree, now I feel guilty, now I feel ashamed. It's not their definition that's correct. It impacts you because you agree to it. We agree to it. I agree to it. So the authority, my point in asking that question, I was going to see if anyone would get there. That's why I asked you, where does the authority come from? Ultimately, it is your authority, in my perspective. And that relates to our sovereignty. So this is something we always do to ourselves when we experience the ramifications of this word. But there was one more hand I want to get there, and then I want to roll on. Yeah. Should we?
Interpretation, yes, about the word should, like making more rules, right? You shouldn't, should. You shouldn't. Why don't we just like, allow it to roll through? It's be conscious of what we're saying and why, which implies that we become more aware of the words we're using and why we're using them. So perhaps maybe we needed to use the word should in this moment for a particular reason, and we're conscious of exactly why we said the word should versus just randomly, you should. And then when we think about it, well, because a lot of times we're talking and we really have no clue what we're saying. We're just right?
So may I pick at that for a moment? When you said we should use should less or use it more consciously, it's sort of like using the definition in the definition. So part of the practice, this is the philosophical approach to authentic language. This is the conceptual underpinning, but there's a very simple, and for me, what was a very rigorous, rigorous practice, an implementable practice with all of the words that we're going to discuss in the next little stretch of time. And that for me is to literally stop using them. That's what I did 10 years ago when I recognized the implications, the meaning that they were carrying. It's not about the words themselves. It's for me, the language that I found that feels the most appropriate is energetic structures of meaning, which comes to like, this quickly goes underneath language, right? When you say, I love you, okay? In what way? How do you say it? How do you mean it? It means I love you erotically. I love you like the tenderness for a child. I love you the way I love my grandmother, or I love the way my grandmother loves something else. Which love? And that all, or it could say like, I love you. And it means I fucking hate you. But that's what you mean, right? So my question about what does this mean? It's like, what are we meaning? And for me, this judgment word is the meaning that's built into it. So when you say we should be more mindful of how we use should, we are recreating a judgment about the proper way to do a thing, right? And so my question to you is, as you recognize, if you agree, if something resonates with you about what I'm observing here, a way to practice this is to stop using that word. So we say, well, we should use should more consciously. We should just stop, right? That was my practice. And I was relentless because I was alone and I didn't have a job and I didn't have to interact with other people that much. And I could take the time to stumble through my language. It was like, we shouldn't use should, we should use, okay, well, oh, and it took a while for me to discover language that felt more authentic. And when I say authentic, this is the authentic language piece, it relates to my current deepest understanding of the nature of reality. And get to that in a second. Kevin, one I didn't want to leave you hanging, but
Just like one thing in grammar, should implies like an ethical implication.
Yeah.
And all ethics and morality are basically something that is a penance towards something. And in Nietzschean philosophy, in the genealogy of morals, he talks about that aspect of human relationships to ourselves as cruelty. And when we have no outside cruelty of being preyed upon or having to feed ourselves, we turn that cruelty inside. And so that's why you should as an ethical implication towards penance.
sure. So I'm going to write moral.
Wow.
We're getting ahead of ourselves, but moral.
Yeah.
Right? That's on the should side. You should do things that are moral.
Because you could say could or would, and that implies like a softer.
Well, those imply possibilities. Those
Yeah.
imply choice. So, if I may, I'd like to advance the plot a little bit. When I started looking at the should thing, I was like, why should I do certain things when I'm saying that to myself? It's like, well, it would be good for me to work out. It would be good. Oh, okay. So there's a should side, and this is the shouldn't side, right? It would be good for me to work out. Well, what's the corollary to good? Well, it would be bad if I didn't. And what are extensions of those? Oh, bad. Well, it could get worse. Extra bad. More bad. Right? Which can, at first, can seem a little like, no, it's not black and white. It's better or worse. It's a spectrum of black and white. Right? So, better. Right? So these are words: better, good, bad, better, worse, moral, immoral. I mean, just right. Things that are right. It would be right for us to be better to the planet. It would be wrong for us to continue murdering and polluting, right? All the things we know are wrong because we know what's wrong, right? We know we have a moral compass and we know what's wrong. We know what's incorrect. And we know what's correct, right? We know what's correct. Now, there are mechanical ways to use these words from my perspective. And yes, someone who said judgment. Yeah. So in the 4-week course that I teach online for the monies, this is chapter 1. This is a very rapid introduction to chapter 1. And the title of that chapter is Judgment. And I'm just going to where can I put this?
Next page.
Yeah. Preference. Judgment and preference. Judgment, what does that mean? I take these to be universal statements about the nature of reality, right? This is preference are how things feel relative to us. And what I've found is that, curiously, most of the things people put in this category, the shouldn't category, the things that are bad, wrong, immoral, correct, incorrect, are things that don't feel good to me, is what people actually mean. And you can tell that because there's all kinds of shit that happens on the planet. And some people think bombing the brown people is really good. And they want to do it. And you're like, no, that's obviously wrong. And they're wrong. Why? It's because it's wrong. How does it make you feel? I hate it. What does that mean? I feel extreme discomfort in my body when I contemplate that idea, is what most people mean by things that are wrong. Oh, let's not forget, this is one of the most important, because this justifies all the violence. Evil. What's that? Really, really wrong. The worst. Extra bad, right? Something that's evil, and you have to stop evil, right? That's the week 2 is need, have to, we need to do things. Let's do all that. Yeah, well, you don't have a choice, right? You need to because it's evil, because it's so wrong. That justify, for me, like this paradigm justifies all the violence we've ever done for all of time, and frankly, I'm tired of that ride. So, yeah, authority, accountability. I think that all of these words in their judgment strip us of our accountability. And that's by design, because it's more comfortable for us, most of us, to not be accountable, because then we're responsible for our preferences and the choices that we make from our preferences. And if you have to do something, it's not a choice. That's week 2. We're getting ahead of ourselves. So what I realized with the should word, the way I came to understand it as I began to do this is no joke for me. It might sound a little grandiose. My perspective is that not every time, there's a mechanical way to, and I'd like to address that. When we say, man, that should have worked, what is meant is I expected that to do a different thing. I am surprised. That's a mechanistic way. That's not a judgment of just like, oh, it's wrong for it to work that way. It means I expected a different outcome. That's a bit more mechanical, right? Does that make sense to everybody? Most of the time I hear most of us using the word should, like a high percentage, we mean it in this way, which is laden with judgment. So when I utter that word, even if it's about something small and innocuous, essentially it's making a claim for all of reality. I am ascending directly to the throne of whatever creation is. I'm cleaving reality into one of 2 halves, a should half and a shouldn't half, the things that should exist and the things that should not exist. There's a right way for it to be. There's a better way for me to be, which is fitter, leaner, drinking more water, using less internet, not cheating on my partner if that's what I need is freedom or whatever. It's all relative. Like these aren't rules. It's depending on your preferences, but we don't want to meet that most of the time because it's a lot easier until we have more internal integrity to be dissociated. Through a sense of some external authority. But it's actually ours. Because we're the one who's deciding what the black half and the white half is. And I love dismantling the idea of the right and wrongs, right? Because if you think back 20 years in your own life, the things that you thought were good, bad, better, good, bad, right, moral, correct, or incorrect, I would guess, I know for myself, like they've changed a lot. What I used to think was awesome and amazing in life, right? Not the same now. Well, was I wrong then? I was wrong. Now I know what's good. And 20 years from now, I'll discover that I was wrong now. And eventually we'll just come to a place where we're just correct. And everything will stop once we've made it to correct. That's not my perspective on reality. My perspective on reality is that it is a boundless emission of infinite love from which all things manifest, literally all. And that is the part that really confronts people, right? So when we talk about, we'll pause for commentary, response, reflection here in just a moment. But this feels important to me to get the basis of the perspective outlined. If we're heading towards, we're here in the Atom Center, y'all are here. So this idea of unconditional love or Christ consciousness. Whoa, lemonade stand. The new earth. Well, I don't see how unconditional love, if that is an aspiration for any of us, individually or collectively, is possible with a judgment of this kind. Which is easy to say until someone cuts you off in traffic, until someone doesn't use their turn signal, until someone drops a bomb, or, and this is where we get into the sensitive stuff, until the rape, until the murder, until the things that happen on the earth place that are so foul, that are so intolerable, that make us so uncomfortable in our bodies that we can't stand it and it has to stop. Why does it have to stop? I submit most of the time in the immediate moment, it's because I am feeling an intense discomfort contemplating the idea of that happening. And so I would like the idea of that happening to go away so I don't feel so uncomfortable in my body. That's evil. This does not mean that I endorse all of the darkness. That doesn't mean that it resonates well with me, that I enjoy it. It doesn't mean that I prefer it. So this is for me, there's two strands. There's judgment and our preference, what resonates with us, what is harmonious, I'll get there in a second, with us individually. And we've had them so tightly wrapped around each other for so many tens of thousands of years that for most of us, for myself, this was true, that I could not separate my judgment about what was right and wrong in reality with what I individually prefer, and to be able to honor our individual preferences. So one thing that like freaks people out when I start sharing this sometimes is like, you mean that you how are you gonna rape people and you're gonna I freaked out about it. As I was processing all this, it's like, what do you mean that you can just do whatever and take the child and smash it on the ground and that's fine, it's wrong! And I would flip a table over. I let a little bit of that energy out sometimes. This can get a little bit intense. I don't mean to alarm anyone, but I let a little bit of the experience that I've processed out so that you can understand that I too have, and still am in this work with the things, confronting what I feel is wrong and the things that I cast outside of reality. And then I cast outside of the contemplation of endless love, right? So I'm still working on it. I've felt it, and it's pushed me right to my edges. And it's the work is ongoing. So I sympathize if there's any difficulty. And I don't see a pathway to this next stage of our evolution until, as we are ready, and when we are ready to release all of this. Because we can't have this with these. They are incompatible. And the reason I call it authentic language is because I believe this is actually the nature of reality, and there cannot be anything outside of it. Anything that denies the nature of that reality, which is judgment, which we can do, we have the authority to do in our experience, but that doesn't make it true for reality, that makes it true for us. So we visit the results of this judgment upon ourselves. That is the nature and the power of our ultimate sovereignty. And so when we're ready to stop doing that to ourselves and therefore to each other, this can begin to blossom. And I submit to you that one way to begin working with that on a very practical, fundamental human level is to, for a time, we're going to pause right after this, stop using these words. Not because they're wrong, don't fall into that trap. Not because you shouldn't, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with them. It's because the habits of meaning, the habit of judgment, the collective meaning that we have individually and collectively for thousands of years across multiple languages imbued into these words, the structures of meaning, are so deep that for a time, until we have more control over the nature of our meaning, I have found it extremely useful to not use the words that are so deeply impregnated with this meaning structure. And when I've done that, I have been forced, because I deny myself the crutch, the dissociative crutch, where it's like, oh, no, yeah, that's not, what do I want? Who cares? I just know that it's right or it's wrong. I am forced to go inwards and discover how I feel specifically about individual things. And if I'm curious, why I feel that way. So I want to pause for a moment. How's this landing for everyone? Awesome. Questions, comments, concerns?
when you said these words are pregnant with meaning, made me think of the word gravity, and gravity means heavy. And gravitas is when a woman's like pregnant, she's in gravitas, which means heavy.
Gravity.
So it's just like impregnating means heavy, and so you can think of these words having like a metaphorical weight and like burdening you.
Yeah, burdening. I mean, all the words are going to have meaning. All we do, from my perspective, is mean. All the time. It never stops. So we are always pregnant with meaning. Right? My perspective is that all of us at all times are playing like a 500,000 finger chord. You're like, how's your day? Good. What does that mean? Well, part of me is tired. Tired of what? Tired in what ways? Part of me is happy. Part of me is anxious. Part of me is fearful. Part of me, all of these, many, many notes. And we'll get into, it's helpful to provide alternative language to help people navigate when their speech shuts down. If you truly take this on and try to not use, we're going to do a little dyad work in a bit. And I'd really like to invite people to try it on and begin to hear, if we agree on some level, if this resonates with you on some level, recognizing that all of these words are impregnated deeply with judgment, and you start to hear them in your common speech, your everyday speech, you'll realize that we reinforce our judgment like to a mind-searing degree. And with like a frequency that is like, when I first started to attune to it, was like, oh dear, oh dear. Other hands, yes, sure.
Yeah, quite a lot is coming up for me, and it's interesting. Politics, I think, runs on judgment.
Yep.
Its engine is judgment. Being a British person traveling in the US, I meet people and I see online things like, I could never be friends with a Trump supporter, or I could never go out with someone who wasn't on the same political lines as me. And I think that's the word that's coming up for me is like, those words are like shut down. They just shut. They're just closed words. They don't open up dialogue. They don't create unity because it's a sense of it's just a no. But if you take them away and ask why, and try to go underneath why people might vote differently to you, I often find that the values underneath, they're actually very similar. But it's just looking at things from two different perspectives. But it's easy just to be like, no.
Yeah, the words that came to me for that, if I may, denial.
Not only a river in Egypt.
You've been waiting for that one.
Oh.
You're welcome, Brett. Rafting the rivers of denial.
So glad you're here. The words that came to me were denial and acceptance. Acceptance being different from agreement. This is, and like the Buddhists have been working on this for like millennia, right? Like working it because it's tricky to unwind these concepts. Well, if I accept that something is, then I must agree with it. No, preference. You're allowed to prefer. In fact, I think it's fucking vital. I swear a lot. For emphasis. Like vital. The preferences are vital. In fact, I actually think that that's all there is, because I don't believe in the rules. I don't believe in the judgment. I don't believe in the right and wrong. That our reality is created from our relative preferences, and it's like I encourage everyone. I've had people freak out on me when they insist that these things don't match reality. Is like because they need the judgment. They feel they need the judgment in order to navigate reality. They haven't given themselves permission And one friend in particular was like, "You're telling me and all the abused partners that they don't have to is week 2, but like they don't need to leave their abusive relationships." And it's like, yeah, they do not need to leave their abusive relationships. No one needs to do anything. Would you like to leave your abusive relationship? That doesn't matter. You're telling me that my preferences. No, I'm telling you that your preferences are really important to the planet. Please don't ignore them. And these interfere with the conscious acknowledgement of our preferences. They don't actually allow for them. That's right, that's wrong. What would I prefer? Doesn't matter. Because I've made an intense universal judgment. You put your hand up for me.
Changing the word should to
I prefer, I feel, I desire, I feel comfortable with. Yeah. Yes.
turn it into I am.
Yes.
Because there really is no I, because we're all connected. And I is a judgment in itself.
Yeah, it's neurolinguistic, but there's lots of other modalities, right? That this is not new under the sun, right? This is, for me, this is old as creation, and so I'm not claiming anything that I feel is particularly novel here, but like I prefer, I want, I desire, do not want, right? But like when you stop using these words, it will drive you, if you do it earnestly, back into your center. There will be no other place to go if you do it earnestly. And when I see people like, oh yeah, no, it's cool, no, it would be beneficial is one of the first places to go. It wouldn't be good to do that. It would be beneficial. It's like, sweet. What does that mean? It means relative to me. And beneficial means that's something that would be beneficial for me to work out. Not good. I'm like, oh, it means I believe that I will have more comfort, more strength in my body, and that's something that I want. Not everybody wants more strength in their body, right? Some people are muscle bound and they need more flexibility. Everybody should be stronger, should they? It's like, it's relative, it's all contextual, but we'll get there with some of the replacement language. Robin, is that you?
I was up, I don't know if you saw it.
Go for it.
It just occurs to me, prefer, want, desire. If we continue on that ladder, it ultimately ends up with I have to, which is like a shift of acknowledging what is alive in us. And then if we are using that word, I have to, then that means we are yoked to some obligation that somebody has set upon us.
Why does what you prefer lead to I have to?
Just in the, like, want is stronger than preference, desire is stronger than want. And actually, like, maybe the next step was, I have to have, people will say, I have to have coffee in the morning,
They can say that.
They can say that, yes. I'm talking about, though, looking at the internal experience, and that's the moment at which we have given up our sovereignty.
Are you concerned that the expression of desire as it rises in its intensity or earnestness will lead people to a feeling of necessity and therefore entrapment?
No, I'm not concerned about that at all. I'm just, as you were doing the ladder out there, I was thinking, what's next? And it seems that people can get to the point, many of us do things that we believe we have to do.
Yeah. Week 2 is have to. I don't believe that, like, that's one even easier. This one, our attachments to right and wrong are so strong that this is in some ways the hardest. It starts with the biggest, deepest root, the most black and white bifurcation of reality. This is the most challenging material in some ways. It's the most directly confrontational. Week 2 would be I need to, I have to, I've got to. And that also is really, for me, very easily dismantled. I don't believe that's ever authentic. Everything, you don't have to. If, I have to go. Well, we're still here talking. So you don't have to. And people, it's like, I have to breathe, right? Like, I'll quash these people like, well, yeah, you have to protect your family. You have to make money. You have to pay your taxes. Like, those are all fairly banal. It's like, no, you don't. You are afraid of what you believe the consequences of doing such a thing might be. Or I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe that have to. It's like if people's desire reaches a peak of burning intensity in its genuineness, like, God bless it. That's what I want for everyone. And if they are in their integrity, if they are grounded in themselves and self-centered in a way that doesn't impose on the rest of reality, let it burn. Like, awesome. Let the peak of their preference reach such an intensity, as long as it's contained within themselves and doesn't extend their preference into judgment for what should be done for other people or how anyone else should live. Absolutely. Right? I don't think that the have to thing has to enter into it. And once you find yourself using that language, if I find myself using that language, I know where I am. I'm in, as you said, a place of confinement. And that one's far simpler. It's like, nothing has to be done. You need to breathe. It's like, no, you don't. You're like, well, you need to stay alive. Definitely do not. I have friends, I've plenty of people in my life that have demonstrated to me that you do not need to stay alive. Right? And anytime you don't want to stay alive, you can leave. It's a choice. What people mean when they say, I need to breathe. What they mean, if I make just a preview of week 2, would be, to put that in a more literal, authentic way, more specifically literal, would be, I would like to stay alive, and I believe I need to breathe in order to do that. To me, that's true. So I not wanted to be alive. It's like it vacillates, it goes, comes and goes. Other hands, yes.
So I'm confused.
Yes.
Do I look confused?
Right. You look lovely.
I want to go back to the should. So if you don't say should, would you say, I'm not going to the store?
Yeah, so let's, yes.
Or,
yes.
or not say anything?
You can say, I am not. That's a declaration of what
I'm not going to the store.
what you intend. But let's take the should thing out of the warfare and the really dramatic stuff. It's also, I think, very instructive to use more innocuous examples, like I should go to the store. I ask you, do you want to?
No.
Great, don't. But you're going to do it anyway, maybe. Then you can have a more genuine conversation with yourself about why you're doing something that you don't want to do.
Well, wouldn't you just go back to not saying anything at all? Like if you're by yourself and you're thinking in your head, geez, I don't have anything for dinner, I should go to the store. Would you just eliminate that?
What I did, my process, and then now the process that I encourage other people to try on if this interests them. What I did is I would think in my head, I would have my monologue and be like, I should go to the store. In the head, and I would like, I should. I want to go to the store. Well, fucking actually, I don't want to go to the store. I'm hungry. What I want is I want my hunger to go away. I want food, so I am going to go to the store to do those things, right? And it becomes less cumbersome over time. Most of us are not used to speaking for ourselves, speaking for our authentic preferences, speaking for what we are feeling in the living moment, which is the only moment that matters, because it's based on the context of whatever's happening around us, who we're with, even if that's just ourselves and our hunger, right? And we're not used to speaking for that. And this stuff, if you take it on earnestly, most people experience that it renders them very unable to talk. If they catch every time they use one of these words.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. You wouldn't be able to talk if you really. At first. That's what's going through my head. You said about going. I'm going to go You should just say, I'm going,
Should you?
instead of, yes. Oh, did I say that?
You said you should.
No, that's, instead of saying that,
Mhm.
I'm going,
Yeah, I am
I'm going,
I am
I'm going now.
as a present declaration of action, that's great.
Instead of I need to go now because blah, 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 blah. Just say, would that come out rude to people that are around you?
Yes, and that's why the subtitle, potentially, and that's why the subtitle to the work is called Authentic Language, the Art of Speaking Truth. Because speaking, what I've found is that speaking what is truest for me at every moment, or not, right, or withholding it if it feels like that's not in service to the moment, that is where it becomes artful. The balance between remaining in my authenticity, my integrity, while being sensitive to the context, right, of where I'm in. Like, it's not, I'd love to get the next, let's put a pin in that mind if you can, because I'd love to relate that to the replacement words, the alternatives couple alternatives that I'd like to offer you that are some of the best language, best by meaning most useful. It's useful.
People are
In the
gonna think you're
context of
nuts.
speaking authentically.
You're just thinking that, all of a sudden,
I'm still working on it.
no, I'm not
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
you're bad. I'm not saying, how do you talk? I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm not saying you're bad.
Yeah.
How do you talk?
I speak for myself. It becomes, when you first sit down at the piano and you're inspired to learn, right? It takes all of your focus. It's clunky. It sounds like shit. It's halting. And over time, we understand that with an instrument or crochet or any other skill, it will begin likely in that way, depending on your level of natural facility and your diligence. And over time, it will become more fluid, more elegant, more efficient, and more joyful, and more free with practice.
So you said you do this online?
Yes.
I mean, I might have to just go to Puerto Rico with you.
Costa Rica. I'd hate for you to be in Puerto Rico. Just ghosted. Where is he?
I'm semi-serious.
Yeah, no,
Because I'd like to follow up on that, but I feel
I
like
have sign-up sheets here.
it's like playing the piano. You got to get a teacher and you got to practice.
You don't have to, but it's helpful
Yes.
for
Should
what
you?
for what you, if you want to. So the conditional, I would say you should, if this is a great way to use that. My understanding, my belief is that if you would like to learn at an accelerated rate, if you would like to become more skillful at an accelerated rate, I don't want to say should, it would be helpful for that purpose to find a teacher you resonate with. That's one way I would speak that. And I'll get there. I want to offer you another example of like, how do you speak it in innocuous terms? We should go to the movies sometimes. Should we? Should they? Don't speak for another person. Or you can, but there will be effects, right? That's super innocuous. What's wrong, quote unquote, with that from the authentic language paradigm? We should go to the movies sometimes. How would you? Well, what would you say? I would love to go to the movies with you sometime. Terrifying. Why? Why? Because it's not dissociated. It feels, even though I don't believe in vulnerability in that way, it feels vulnerable. Use green. Right? Because we are speaking for ourselves. We are speaking for our preferences. We are speaking for our desire. And we are making that known to others. And because of the dissociation, I submit, this is my perspective, inherent in our cultural programming and upbringing, we've all been living behind a great big dissociative barrier of judgment. And then what we want is like, what if they say no? Yeah, I would love to go to the movies with you sometime. And they're like,
I don't like you.
yeah. Maybe. Or maybe they're like, wow, this person wants to be, I would love that as well. Connection. A deeper connection, I submit to you, than the one that happens, yeah, we should. That would be the right thing for both of us to do. Doesn't hit the same. I don't know how you feel that. It lands differently for me. And that's a really innocuous example. So that pattern of the fear that's present with the seeming of vulnerability, that pattern expands with the intensity of our attachments. And so the connection, the deepening of the experience that's possible, I hope that demonstrates that to you through a really innocuous real world example. We're getting there, 1 second. Where am I right down here?
It's like passive and active grammar.
Vulnerability. It would seem, and you can tell when you're slipping into more authentic language, especially at first, because oftentimes it feels hot and uncomfortable, like you're exposed, and you are, which is beautiful to me. Does that make sense to everyone?
I just want to check because you said something and I was just like, why did you just say that? You said, I don't believe in vulnerability in that way. And I was like, what do you mean by that? I didn't want to take myself down a track of trying to understand what you meant by that.
So this is the first wave of authentic language, and I thought it was done as I started teaching this, and within the last year, the next wave of concepts has started to come forward, and they're not fully refined, but I do recognize what they are, and I actually have not been sharing them with anyone intentionally because I think that this is enough for most, and that the words that have been coming through now and the meaning structures they contain are still doing a lot of really beneficial work on the planet. However, I see their time will be ending as we start to unpack their full import, but for now, I think they're a very important bridge for many people. Vulnerability is one of those. Lots of them are concepts that we have taken and kind of lionized, we've elevated as concepts that are to be revered.
Example.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Vulnerability is one. For me, it's okay. The seed word for that next Pandora's box was hope. Because I lived emotion. I lived a lot of my life with an intense and relentless kind of hopelessness. I saw all the systemic problems in the world, and I just didn't see how they could be fixed and whatever. And now I would tell people, look at all the darkness and the political upheaval and the murder and the warfare and all the stuff. You know, like it's so dark, it's so crunchy, it's so and I actually now find myself in a place where I've been telling myself for a while, telling other people, I'm actually more hopeful than I've ever been in my life. This is awesome. This is like the late stages before the alcoholic drags himself into the 12-step meeting. I don't know if we're in the crunchiest part, but we're getting close to the dregs. And I know what's on the other side of that from many examples of myself. It's like, but as I repeated telling people how hopeful I am now, because that was a new experience in my life, there's something clicked at a moment, and I realized like that. It's like, I'm so much hopeful. I'm not hopeful. That's actually not true for me anymore. I am certain. I know. I know where humanity is headed. No matter what comes before. No matter what we have to experience or endure.
Yeah, baby.
I know.
Amen.
I do not hope. Because hope has a corollary. In the way that we have meant it, in the way that I had meant it, hope implies a degree of fear that it may not be. And I no longer believe that it may not be. And so I realize that for most of us, most of the time we use hope, there is a thread of fear that is intermixed. And at some point, if this is where we're headed, there will be a time to release all fear at all levels. And that means that hope, in the way that we have used it, will no longer have a place. We won't need it. And there are other experiences that are outside of the dichotomy of hope and fear that are just as valid. Wonder, joy, curiosity, ecstasy. Many, 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 many vibrations have nothing to do with that paradigm. And so at some point, hope will have served its purpose. I don't think it's done yet. And that's why I'm not talking about this, generally speaking. Courage. It's good to be courageous. It's really good. We encourage folks to be courageous, to rise up against their fear. And for now, that's awesome for many of us who have been crippled by fear and have done nothing and hidden because of our terror. So courage has felt like a useful antidote. However, in an existence in which fear is not part of our reality, there is no place for the courage thing. It is not required. It doesn't make sense. If you are not afraid, you're not courageous. You are many other things. And there will come a time for our group of beings to set those concepts aside and evolve to something higher. But that time's not here yet. And I think that those words are still doing wonderful work. So I'm not sharing this generally. You may take it as you will. Does that answer your curiosity?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Wonderful. I find that this first level of authentic language is enough for most. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't want to mentally go down a path of not understanding. That's why I asked for that.
Yeah, okay. It's an interesting experiment to share this with a group. Yes, please.
Have you found that you're able to let go of the fear because you're okay with, you're not judging the possible future?
Oh, I'm in my judgment and fear all the time.
Or your certainty of knowing?
There's some places I have access. And in my personal life, like anxiety, right? Like I am in progress with all of this, right? Like what's going to happen with my finances? I'm drowning in debt. Is my set going to turn out all right? Can I create another piece of music? I don't know. Every fucking thread of anxiety that I feel is like, there's fear. I'm carrying fear. I'm not done. I don't fully embody all of these understandings yet. They are coming to me. I see them really clearly. The patterns are obvious to me, crystal clear. I'm not living the experience of the truth of that information yet, 100%. However, one way that I see reality in fractal terms. You familiar with a fractal? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's no big and no small to me. There's a pattern, right? And if you look at a Mandelbrot set or anything else like that, there's the infinite individualized expressions of that pattern. And so one place that I've seen that pattern of fearlessness, right? What happens after the darkness? I use that idea to bring myself some comfort and bring myself back into the fearless place, the knowing. Because I have had so many rides in my own life where it was so dark, it was so wrong, it was so unacceptable. How could she do that? Blew my heart to absolute shards, right? Et cetera, et cetera. It's so gnarly, right? Because of things that happened that were unacceptable, that were evil. The trauma, the abusers, all that stuff. And with sufficient time and evolution, I have noticed a pattern. And I think most of it, probably, if you look at it, it's like, yeah, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But, oh my God, at the time I thought I wanted to die, but it led me to a thing that I never could have given myself consciously, and I wasn't prepared to, but it propelled me to that. But now I'm pretty sure that what's happening is wrong. This darkness is too much. Can't be correct. Before, no, I was ignorant then. I didn't know. I didn't see. It's like, okay, how many times? That's why the Tao, the symbol, looks the way it does. The darkness, quote unquote, giving birth to the light. So now we enter this phase of seemingly intense darkness and hopelessness, right? I know those patterns. Even though I, as a human, am experiencing my fears and stuff like that, I am crystal clear on those patterns. And that means that even while I'm having an emotional, small vibration experience of the crushiness and despair and not knowing how it's all going to work out and all that stuff on a grander scale, I call the pattern of existence, what we're all in, inevitably more beautiful than anything we previously could have conceived of.
And we're human, you know, and it's a both. I see that.
Yeah. And we're working on that. I think we're all evolving into an embodied experience of that pattern, right? So that not beyond trust, knowing, when that kind of certainty settles in at a deep level and all fear is displaced at every level, we won't be the same species that we've been. But that's another conversation. Yes.
I really am enjoying this conversation, and I think it is very timely because of what humanity is going through right now with everything changing. And I think we are creator beings. I know we are creator beings, and I know the power of creation is through the word. And so the words that we say are so important.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I have my first go-to whenever I am presented with information that you have presented today. My first thing was like, oh, I should try to do that. So try has been my trip word because I've got to where when somebody says to me, I will try and do that, it's like the chalkboard, fingernails down the chalkboard, you know, it's like, don't tell me you'll try, either say yes or say no. Don't put me in this, I don't know what you're going to do, because try doesn't mean anything. It's a trip word. And
Actually, try means failure.
Yoda.
Right?
I think Yoda spoke on that one.
Oh, that's correct. But to me, I think I've really been contemplating this a lot lately, and language is so fascinating because it's how we take ourselves to a place of relativity. And if I hear a word, I'm always looking at, the duality that we have. I'm always looking, well, I have been feeling a little discouraged. Well, but if I take that discouragement and turn it into courage, I can shift a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the words are really powerful. So I'm appreciating this conversation and how much we can affect this change on planet Earth by our words.
The words, may I respond to that? The words to me are triggers and portals to open our awareness to ourselves and how we're actually resonating. And through that deeper self-contact, we not only emit something that I believe, yes, impacts the world, the group field, but also will shift our actions and our choices, right? And so the words can alert us to being in judgment, that we're out of our empowerment, out of our choice, because we're putting ourselves there. Ironically, we're the only ones that can do that. I'd like to take one or two more brief hands, and then I'd like to accelerate to a couple other moments in the plot while we have a little bit of time. One or two more comments or questions? Yeah.
I was just going to say your red and black is all polarity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that last night, the way you managed 50 people here dancing and introduced us to, the cacao ceremony and the stunning dance, you really demonstrated what you're talking really, really well. And, on that whole dance floor, there was no judgment.
Well, that's a great way to kick off a couple words that I'd like to suggest as alternatives, or even if you don't use these words specifically in this way, alternative concepts. And the language that's felt most authentic to me to begin to replace, because it's like, what do we say, right? Instead of this. The language that I've found to use that feels the best to me is, and again, that's an example, right? The language that I've found that feels the best to me. That's about as true as I can put it right now, right? It's tempting to say the best language. In what context? Best for what, right?
For you.
Yeah, like also these words, as you stop using them, they are such blunt instruments, they describe nothing, right? Like they're so useless. Like, good day. How was your chicken? Good. Good chicken. Oh, what was good about it? Was it crispy? Was it juicy? Was it tender? Were you super hungry? You know what I mean? You went home with a girl last night. How was the sex? It was like, good sex. Oh, okay. Lucky her. Anyway, life becomes a lot more rich when we start exploring the specifics of what we mean, what we enjoy, what we prefer, and that happens a lot more easily as we become practicing this. So the language that I've found is musical in nature. Musical being frequency based, right? So like good and bad, harmonious, very useful to me in this context. Dissonant. These are really helpful words and concepts for me in this paradigm, because there are no incorrect, immoral, wrong notes or frequencies. There's only the relationship they have to all the other notes playing around them at that time, which is what we call harmony. Different kinds of harmony, right? And it also doesn't imply that dissonant is bad, right? This to me gives us a really quick way out of judgment and into the experience that we prefer, right? Jazz, like a whole art form born out of dissonance, intentional, artful dissonance in a way that was surprising and pleasing. The blue note, right? People are like, oh my God, that's wonderful. That dissonance pleases me. I find it surprising or pleasing. Norwegian death metal. Sometimes you want a crunchy ass dissonant. It's like, that's horrible. Not always. I mean, peak moment in my teenage years was seeing Metallica live in the Sullivan Arena. It was like, fuck yeah! It's like, there's a place for that. The sexual analogy, it's like pain, dissonance, causing someone pain. Well, don't hurt other people. You especially, permit me a old school heteronormative example. This doesn't really cover it, but it's so direct. It's like you don't pull women's hair. Don't yank on women's hair, it hurts them. Got it. Got it. Never yank on women's hair. It's like, wait, what? If I were an alien, it's like, but sometimes we pull their hair? It's like, when? It's like, during the sex thing? It's like, oh, okay. During sex, pull women's hair. It's like, no, always during sex, pull women's hair. They like that. No, wait, no, what do you mean? Oh, okay, but only sometimes? Always during sex, at least once, pull on their hair. No, wait, what do you mean? Not that? When am I supposed to pull their hair? When they prefer it. And only when they prefer it. Only when the pain or the dissonance actually does something that we seek, that we enjoy. You go doing your hill sprints, right? And you've worked your body until you're going to puke. And it feels awful and it hurts. But you have a belief and an attachment to an idea that that's going to advance you in some way and give you something that you want. So it doesn't feel like pain. The experience of the pain, the experience of the dissonance in a way isn't even dissonance. It's relative to the notes of your expectation, the notes of your attachment. And so it becomes a kind of harmony. Pain is bad. Oh, is it? Then what are you at the gym for? What are you pulling her hair for? His hair, their hair, whatever. Doesn't matter, not relevant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this helps us align ourselves to all the other notes that are playing around us and within us. And if something feels dissonant in a way that we don't like, oh my God, that sound, why don't we enjoy it when two notes just they clash and it's like, ah. Well, the experience of those two frequencies meeting in that way is unpleasant to me. That is some authentic language from my perspective. That is unpleasant to me. And then you could really drill down on what pleasant and unpleasant means, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole. On an intrinsic level, it pleases me, or it does not. Even if it's painful, even if it's a kind of dissonance. Does that make sense? And that way we can start to drop the judgment and work with what feels harmonious or even dissonant, but more like what is, I'm going to use green, it's a little more neutral. Enjoyable. And that's not even always it, because sometimes we don't enjoy something that we're doing, but we're pleased to be doing it. That enjoyment and pleasure or being pleased by something, I don't enjoy the workout that I'm doing, but I am glad to be doing it. Ooh, how do we separate those? Because those are actually different meaning structures for me. And it's taking all of these frequencies, these microtonalities that are always alive in all of our bodies at every moment and becoming more skillful at separating them. So we can share and combine. I do this with my partner all the time, right? Like picking apart the nuances when it's appropriate. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, I can belabor this, right? It's like, I feel 12,000 things and I'm going to enumerate. Yeah, it's not all the time. So that's the art of speaking truth, right? It's becoming more skillful both in what we're working with, at finer delineations, and also understanding how to play those notes out loud and when and at what volume and with what other notes that are around me and inside of me. Yes, babe.
Along those lines, with like words like balanced and imbalanced work there, or is that different?
Yes, it does, as long as you understand that it's relative to you, relative to your perception of the moment, until you begin to claim what is in balance for the earth or what is in balance for society, and then it becomes a judgment. Can you feel the difference when I say that?
Yes.
Right? Because the Earth's balance operates on a time scale of billions of years, for example. You say, the Earth is out of balance. You know.
In Earth's consciousness.
Yeah, oxygen was a great imbalance at one time on the Earth. A great disturbance, right? Killed everything that wasn't cyanobacteria until the rest of us could finally arrive. Well, it should stay that way. The planet should be the way it is right now. Yes, the circle of our preference, right around where we happen to be standing at this moment. Anyway, there's more I could go on about the fear of change and all that stuff. Yes, please.
So listening to talk about the harmonious dissonance reminds me of a phrase I heard a week ago or something, and it kind of switched my mental framework and my spirituality beliefs and stuff in a good way.
good
You
way.
can be satisfied without having to be happy.
Yeah.
We always mix happiness and satisfaction together, and most people wait to be happy before they're satisfied with how things are, versus finding the satisfaction in how things are in the present moment. And then happiness may be a byproduct of that, but it's not necessarily the end goal. Satisfaction is more important than necessarily your judgment of what happiness is.
Sure, more important to you. May I offer one quick adjustment?
Yes.
Yes, when you said it flipped your spirituality or in a good way, I would pause there if I were practicing authentic language diligently and ask the self what good means to you. And that's always the cause and effect is a really rapid escape hatch from judgment. Cause and effect. What is it I'm seeking? Chaos.
Whoa.
Did I put it on Do Not Disturb?
That would be your thing.
Yeah, of course.
Get disturbed.
Cause and effect, right? So when you say it was good for it flipped my spirituality in a good way, what specifically did I appreciate about what it did for my spirituality?
May I respond?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, lately I've been kind of struggling with, well, not struggling. I've always been a spiritual person, but unless I'm really struggling in life and needing, quote, help, I've never really turned to it. And then something in my life big happened that's kind of scary circumstances, but through that fire I'm becoming a better version, more aligned to myself, and actually, as I say, falling into faith. And for a minute there I felt guided, felt comforted, felt led, and then it disappeared. And when you were saying earlier, it's human nature to assign meaning to things, my immediate meaning was, I must have done something wrong to be abandoned. What did I do wrong? And so having to learn to understand that sometimes the silence isn't necessarily wrong or bad or good or wrong. It is a part of the spirituality that there's moments of silence where you really are left to your own devices, and in this darkness, what are you going to create when you have nothing and everything? And so for a minute there before I heard that phrase, I was really struggling with my spirituality of, I must be a bad person, I must have done something wrong. And I've been using spirituality as a means of chasing happiness, per se, versus rather than looking at my life and being satisfied with what is good in it, and then being dissatisfied with what I don't yet have. And so realizing I've been chasing happiness as a means to escape satisfaction, escape what is my present reality, and realizing happiness isn't the end goal. Happiness isn't what I should be pursuing consistently. I should be finding ways to be satisfied with I am, who I have been, who I am becoming, even though I'm terrified of it, and realizing I can be satisfied even when there's chaos around me, and that's not necessarily good or bad. It's kind of removing the need to assign judgment and meaning to everything and just accepting. Getting out of that denial stage and going, I accept this, and since I've done that, even in the silence, I'm starting to get echoes of feeling comforted and led in the right direction and going, you're on the right path again. So stop chasing the happiness for me was a good thing to realize it's a good thing to be happy in life, yeah. Chase your dreams and stuff, but also be satisfied with what has been provided for you. Be satisfied with what's being taken away from you, with the understanding and acceptance that better things will come, and those better things may leave too. It's the cycle of existence.
Yeah. I hear you and I concur. And if I may, I'd like to encourage you all. If you see me do this and if you ever work with me in the future, it can sometimes seem relentlessly pedantic on my part when I notice the words that people use. But I really, really, really sincerely encourage you that the understanding the concepts that I've shared with you now will not begin to change you or your life in a meaningful way unless you begin to catch these words and find alternatives. So if you ever see me tap my ear, right, I don't wish to interrupt anyone most of the time. However, notice how many times the word good, should, or better were used, right? And this is why it's difficult for people to speak, right? Because we're not used to being specific about what it is we appreciate, what it is we're seeking. And There's nothing wrong with doing that, but you're here for a reason. Right now, I have other friends that I've led through these paradigms, and he's like, yeah, you know what I mean. It's like, brother, did you come to Kung Fu class to not learn? But you're here for a reason. So the practice is super, 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 super simple. Let all of these words like burn in your awareness. Right? Because for me now, every time I hear them come out of someone's mouth or my mouth, it's like a dart flies in my ear. And I don't say that most of the time because that would be challenging to maintain what most people consider normal conversational dynamics. But I'm intensely aware of it. And the invitation for all of you, if this is a practice and not just a philosophical understanding, a practice that will really rapidly lead you to engage with yourself in a more specific and deeper way, that will lead you to be able to engage with others in a more specific and deeper way, and maintain relationships that are, because of that specificity and the reservation of your desires as only your own, make relationships that are based on mutual agreement rather than judgment. It is requisite that these words not be used until you are able to use them in a way that doesn't contain these meaning structures. And I suggest to you, if you think you've done that in a day or two, it's probably not. Because these meaning structures are like 15 to 30,000 years old, as far as I can tell, in this cycle. So it's very, 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 very helpful in terms of embodying these concepts to take this on as a relentless practice, is what I did. I get that that's not always possible all the time when you got to get through your workday and all that stuff. So on that note, we are at 4:30. That was kind of the advertised time. If y'all are open to it, I would love to take 6 minutes. It doesn't have to be. I'd love to fit in a quick dyad work where everybody turns to someone that's close to them, partners up, and just tries to have a normal conversation. Is that what we do, Robert? Yeah. Yeah, and so here's the template. Here's how this would roll. What I would request, if you're open to it, is that you take turns speaking. It'll be 3 minutes per person, and you can either just talk about your day, talk as you normally would, or talk about something that's got a bit of charge for you. Maybe something where you think that someone should or shouldn't have done such a thing, right? Or something that you should or shouldn't do, or whatever. You can access that directly, or you can just talk and see what tumbles out. The listener, try not to engage in so much back and forth, right? You can listen to them, you can respond, but the listener's job is, I would like for mostly to be more quiet so that you can listen more intensely. And maybe if one of these or something that feels like it pops out and the speaker doesn't notice, just give them a tap. Just give them a, should they?
Maybe tap their ear?
Should they? No. If you establish that mutually with your partner, that they would like you to poke their ear when they say that, go for it.
Just want to be clear.
Everything by agreement. You're all interested in that? Would that be all right? Because I find it's very useful for people to at least try it on and see if this pops up, how quickly. And I'll set a timer and we can get started. So just pick anybody that you find yourself in your drawn to. I'm glad you're that engaged. I am. Thank you. Sorry, postman.
That's okay, it's just Walter.
Jeez. How was that for everybody?
Fun.
Yeah? What was fun about it?
It was interesting, and I'm afraid to talk. I didn't have such a problem as I thought I was going to have, eliminating, the shoulds and I could or I did. We just talked. He talked about what he did. I asked him how he came about encouraging people like the kind of thing that you're doing. We just talked back and forth, and I found it was easier than I thought. Didn't you?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's not actually, I mean, it's really dumb simple. At the end of the day, we're just very much not used to it, to speak truly for ourselves. It's really like, I prefer. You can still express like loads of universal judgment and say, I prefer this, and I can sense that you mean that that's true for everybody, which sucks.
Big time.
Right? But it's harder to do it when you're speaking with language that we're used to meaning for ourselves. So anyway, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. Wonderful. Other experiences?
I found it a bit clunky.
Yeah.
There was like a space while I was thinking about what I was talking about, so it felt a bit spacey when I was talking, but
Yep.
I guess that's part of it. One is learning a new language almost, or eliminating certain things within the language. I assume it will always be, I assume it will be clunky until it's not.
Yeah. The fact that it feels clunky to me actually is super positive, because it means that you're actually engaging with the work in an earnest way. Yeah. Like I said, people was like, oh yeah, man, I don't say those. Yeah, I'm not using those words. Beneficial, it's positive can be another substitute for good. Like they're using it. The meaning hasn't shifted at all, right? So there's no searching has been done, right, to find themselves. And so what I find is that clunkiness, that space, is actually going inwards and like beginning to tease apart all those things. So for me, that's, while it's not the most enjoyable aspect, just like the beginning of learning the piano is not the joyous part for most of us, right? Like it is a sign that you're actively learning, which is awesome.
To use these words again, I think I feel regularly clunky in my speech. I have always, or have tended towards the practice of precision of language, and am blessed with the people I surround myself with. Pause with me long enough to search and find a word that I feel is most accurate for what I'm trying to describe. But some of the words that you've introduced today aren't ones that had popped on my radar yet, and so having a new kind of booklet of words to pay attention to the weight that they have is, thank you, I'm looking forward to exploring them and seeing how I can shift to just continue to be more authentic and accurate to me.
Other experiences in the diet?
I didn't do the diet today because it was my baby, but last week when we practiced, and just what I love, like been working with NBC for a long time. This is like next level, and like it forces you to be so conscious about what's happening in here, about what's going on. I'm super excited to have these tools to work with.
Which is why it bogs people down.
Yeah.
It's a deeper level of awareness, but the awareness becomes faster. It becomes more fluid, in my experience of others. So it's like, yes.
So it's not my first time hearing this. I first was exposed about 4 years ago, and I tried hard to implement what I learned then. And every time I see you, it helps reinforce the concepts I have learned from you. Wow, lots of feels. I find the biggest challenge now to be those I'm closest to when I find them using language that I don't feel is authentic and might be more projecting or judgment or other non-authentic type feelings connected to it. It brings up more in me. Besides going on a walk and finding some swings in your neighborhood park, what other tips can I try to not get so bogged down sometimes in the inability to communicate with somebody in what I feel is a valid form.
Meaning that they seem unable to receive the way that you would like to communicate? Ways to deal with the difficulty of that experience?
Yeah. Because for me, it incites or gives the feelings of like the fight or flight. So I either feel the need to go on a walk and change my vibration. It's hard for me to sit with it, so I try to do that as much as I can. But when that energy builds to a point, I remove myself. So
I mean, I understand that like interpersonal circumstances, depending on the nature and the attachments, the intensity of the relationship can become quite intense. You know, and it's a fine thing to say, like, honor their journey, honor where they're at, right? Recognize when there's a resistance. And, you know, I have plenty of people for whom I've, in various ways, attempted to like, okay, I see the barrier, and I'm like, this way, how about no, and it's like, it's just like, nope, not getting in. And eventually for me, I'm like, I'm not your medicine right now. I'm not, and there's that, I mean, it depends on what's upsetting you about it, right? Sometimes it's like, but they need to see this. Be real careful of the, I know what would be better for you. Right? The helping pathologies are the most insidious because it seems like there is a genuine kernel of nurturing and desire, goodwill in it, but it's also recognized that you believe that something should be changed about them. That there's a should there.
yes,
There's a judgment,
and
right?
that's what it keyed in. There's a judgment for me in how they're reacting to me.
Yes.
And how to eliminate that. So, time maybe?
How to eliminate your reaction?
The judgment, how not to get into judgment. How not to let it pop in your brain so easily.
I like the answer you gave last night, the noticing.
Ooh, being
That,
aware.
that's it.
But almost like you shouldn't have your own feelings.
Shouldn't?
Like you don't have your own feelings. You know, you need to acknowledge your own feelings.
Yeah, no. I wouldn't say she needs to, but yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't encourage you to deny your feelings, but how cause and effect. So yes, noticing, like recognizing your reaction, but then diving under what is the root of your reaction? Why is it upsetting you that they are the way that they are? Because there's something that you are desiring that you feel is not being provided or is being put on you that you don't want or don't quote unquote deserve or something. There's an attachment to some outcome that person in their behavior is violating in some way from that specific framework.
Right.
But you may not be fully aware of what it is you want from them, whether that's recognition or validation or a lack of, emotional violence. I want you to treat me more peacefully, or whatever you define as respect, quote unquote, or something, right? But you want something that you have an attachment to something you haven't fully recognized. And they're violating the terms of that attachment, whether you're or they are unconscious. Otherwise you wouldn't react. Otherwise you wouldn't react. Right? It's like the homeless guy walks up in the street and be like, you owe me $1 million. You're like, what do you mean? You might react to that, right? If you have some, but a lot of the time you'd be like, I literally don't know what you're talking about. I've never met you before. Very little reaction, say like, I want to get this person away from me. You have an attachment to your physical safety, and you believe that person might do you harm. They're not yet, but whatever. That's where the fear comes from. You have an attachment to some sort of idea or belief, right? And so, yes, be aware and go investigate, and also feel your feelings. Don't deny them, don't stuff them down, but go deeper than that into what it is that you are looking for, and that way you can be accountable dance that is occurring between you and the person that seems to be upsetting you, because they are not upsetting you. You are upsetting yourself by some notion that you have about what it is should or shouldn't be happening between you and that person. It's not the same thing as not having any preferences. Once you're clear about that, I think it's a lot easier to decide what you prefer and what you wouldn't, and then in a more clean way, and the way that's more conscious and leaves less of these like artifacts in the field between you and the other person, it's easier from that place to determine how you would like to go about getting what it is you have now clearly understood that you want, which may not have been clearly understood before. Does that make sense?
It does.
So dive deeper inside.
Thank you.
Well, friends, I got the whirly-do. So, just a final word, I guess, about if this intrigued you, if you took value from it. A couple things. This is work I do intermittently. I teach a 4-week course. It's okay to talk about that briefly?
Absolutely. And in fact, I'm going to have a way for them to get in contact with you that's going to make it super easy.
Wonderful. Well, there's a couple things. There's a 4-week course coming up. It starts October 19th. It's one course a week, 2 hours, similar to this, more structured, right? And it will address these and many other words which will be encouraged to forbid yourself to say for a time, to really cripple your speech.
Is this online?
Yes, it'll be online. It's all online. It's over Zoom. They're recorded. Live participation is strongly encouraged, but everything is recorded, so you can go back to it in retrospect. And also, there's a more extensive body of written materials. There's like a booklet essentially that comes with each week. So this week, for example, most of what we've talked about would be week 1, judgment and preference, right? So you might, in fact, if you're here and you want to take the full course, remind me of your presence at this workshop, and I'll offer you a 25% discount on the course. I'd have to pay you like Venmo or something private and personal like that. I don't have a system for it, but since you've kind of sat through this way.
You said something about booklets.
Yeah, it'd be an online material. So with
Totally online.
each course of the 4 weeks, there's a written component,
Online.
supplemental material.
Online. Because I
Yeah,
don't
that you
get
can
mail.
download. Yeah,
I don't
it'll
get
be
mail.
emailed to you. It'll be accessible online. You'll have it in perpetuity, right? So that all of this, you don't have to remember it in your head entirely. You can go back and reference materials. So that starts October 19th through November 9th. That 4 weeks, every Sunday afternoon, Alaska time.
So it's once a week?
During Adam.
Just
saying.
Well,
We'll figure that out.
well, anyway.
We'll figure that out.
And then the last thought is every week for free, every Tuesday from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. I host what I call open sessions, which is an hour of work with anybody for any reason, with anyone brings to the table, relationship stuff. If you want to help writing a difficult letter, unpacking all of reality through this paradigm, I'm there every week to support anyone who comes for any reason.
What time, sorry?
5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Alaska time every Tuesday. And if you sign up or give me your email on these sheets, you can go to apothecary.earth and read more about that, or you can sign up here, and every week I send an invite email. The Zoom link never changes. Once you've had one, you can access it at any time every week.
Let's give them a round of applause.